Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Future Proof Use podcast. Go F yourself. We are here again today, and it is getting close to the end of the summer, and the team is here. My name is Dan Yu, your co-host today, along with
Hello.
John Lovig and Aaron McKelkey.
Welcome.
So today, going into the end of the summer, we're seeing actually a lot of news happening around jobs and careers. And so would love to give you kind of an update on what we're seeing out there. So John, we saw kind of a new trend this week, or the past couple of weeks, the job hugging, right? Kind of, that's an interesting way to kind of talk about, how you approach your job. But maybe explain to the audience what job
Yeah,
hugging
for me,
is.
it's from my understanding, it's holding on for dear life, essentially, hoping either you don't get caught up in a layoff or you're just waiting to see what happens with the market.
Yeah, and so there's been lots of trends over the past few years, right? So there was the Great Resignation, right? So that was a little bit like right
Hmm.
around COVID, like right after COVID. Then there was kind of like the quiet quitting, and then quiet cracking. Right now, it's job hugging. I think it's truly a sign of the times when the media picks up on these things. That these trends, and they're just regurgitating what they're hearing from the
Hmm.
public, pretty
Can you
much.
guys, as recruiters, give us an example of a job hugging scenario? Because I have no idea what this is, and I can't conceptualize that.
Well, I mean, teachers are the ultimate job huggers. They just, tenure, tenure. Uh, you know, uh, it's an example of when someone's got you might hear leanings of layoffs, but you're uncertain of the market. I
Mhm.
think the term is more around like hoping that you become one of those people, right? Or if you hear organizational shifts, trying your best to stay employed and not leaving. I think it's really just like posting up and not actively jumping ship.
So, not that I know anyone who does that or that teachers are notorious for that, but would that mean maybe some of those people have been empowered with the contract gig economy or the AI powered side hustle where they go, normally I would leave this job. I don't like it. I'm going to get cut eventually, whatever. And now they kind of hug the W 2 because of some of these technologies. They can do
Yes.
something at night or on the weekends or on their day off. Like, where do you think this is coming from, Dan?
Well, I think there's a lot of uncertainty, right? So every week we see articles about layoffs, right? So seemingly stable companies, right? So Microsoft or what you might think is a growth industry. I think it's a tough market out there, right? And even financial services firms that previously we had never heard of them laying off, all of a sudden they're laying off people by the thousands. And so the uncertainty that's out there, I think there's a lot of volatility in the economy. um, I think there's a lot of uncertainty. So when companies have uncertainty about the economy, where their customers are coming from or where revenues are coming from, what's that going to do? They're going to retrench and figure out what are the most critical employees to keep. And so I think part of job hugging might be, raising your hand a little bit more and taking on more projects, or talking about ourselves and how awesome we are, right? And all the great results we're pushing out. So I think that's part of job hugging too, right? So doing the internal networking thing, or really going on LinkedIn and talking about how awesome my week was. So I think there's a bunch of that too.
Yeah.
Well, don't we agree as future proof you that the average person should probably be doing more of that, whether they're job hugging or just trying to, as you called it, internally network or
Absolutely.
manage up the
Absolutely.
chain of command? Most people think your manager has like a browser tab open where they're looking through your webcam 24/7 and they know everything that you do. And then in reality, you're like, oh yeah, they don't know why I'm stuck because I didn't say that in the meeting or, send them the Slack message. So in my experience, at least, I think more people should do that, whether you're job hugging or not. It's just a best practice.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, managing up is a skill that actually nobody ever really teaches, right? Nobody ever teaches about how to talk about the KPIs that you're in process of beating, right? You should be memorializing that, having weekly, or I should say regularly scheduled conversations with your manager, and also giving kudos to the people that support you, right? It's a team effort in many respects, right? So that's also part of the internal networking, right? Being able to give kudos and creating your brand as somebody that is a good team player, right? And also kicking butt on beating the
Well, and
KPIs.
let's use John as an example. He's in a kind of a new role with a new organization. How come they have you leading these AI integration meetings and kind of training and sharing things internally? Why you, John?
Well, I think one, I worked there before 5 years ago, so they know that I'm a techie. But also because it's sort of playing on work that I've already been doing external. So I talked about it in conversations, and they were just intrigued by it, and that's part of why they were excited to bring me back. Is sort of trying to stay ahead of this AI revolution and really see how we can lean into it as a recruiting firm.
Do you think any of those now colleagues saw your content when you were not working for the organization and said, dang, I wish that guy could lead a training, or we should bring him
Probably,
back and teach us how to do it?
probably. And then in the meantime, I've shown them little tips and tricks and things like that. I've been building agents and trying to solve problems with AI that can make life easier for all of us.
Yeah, and the answer that I'm trying to draw out, I think a lot of people have been in this situation. I personally have experienced this for a few years. I know I can help internally, but I don't want to go tell the boss or the manager, look at me, I can do this. Or maybe you're like, I don't think they'd listen to me. If you go post it, if you go speak about it, if you tweet about it, we like LinkedIn, but wherever, and just share, here's what I'm doing. I'm I'm doing all these Zoom interviews. I have an agent to help me curate the transcripts and write the job descriptions. Someone's going to see that and say, wow, that's cool. And eventually, it sounds weird, but your own organization or your team might be like, hey, I saw you on LinkedIn say you know how to do this. Why don't you teach us? So even if you can't go internal first or you feel awkward, like if you're the new guy, the new lady, just post it somewhere and it'll eventually come back. And they might be so sick of seeing you on TikTok or LinkedIn that they're like, let him teach us that.
I also think being, knowing who to share information with. So, like, first you might say to a colleague, one of the things we hate to do in recruiting is do our write ups, right? It takes time, writing takes forever, and people are always like, oh, I gotta figure it out. And I just automated that for myself. And so when I was telling one of my colleagues, oh, I just automate
Mhm.
my write ups so that I can do them, immediately and not have to overthink it. They're like, oh, wow, that's really cool. We'll have to sit down and look at that sometime. And then you do that, and then the next person hears how two of you are doing write ups in a minute instead of, taking 10 minutes, 15 minutes to do a write up. And then they're like, oh, we should all be doing this. So pretty soon you're training the whole
Yep.
team instead of just one person.
And here,
Yeah. After interviews, doing the write ups is the second most time consuming thing
Hmm.
we do.
and so I want to highlight this because there was a big article that came out this week about how 99% of organizations are not seeing an ROI on their AI spend. Say they get a new enterprise software or bring people in to train them. My take on that is people don't know how to use it. It's not that the tool can't save you time, save you
Mhm.
money. if you're in one of those roles where you're like, yeah, my company is hesitant to invest or give us these tools, just go show them. Here's a task that my colleagues do daily. If you could save 50% of the time on each of those with as good, or in John's case, I know this, better quality than if they did it manually, what would that save us? Like, what would that be worth? Because they don't actually care. Oh, it's a custom GPT that you plug in here. They're just like, yeah, how do we get that? Bring it to us and then show us how to use it. Because the organizations I've seen and some I've worked with to train people, they see amazing ROI, but the ones who just dump it in and say, there's a new login on your single sign-on tool and no one knows what the heck it is, those are the ones that aren't seeing an ROI. So I'm curious, with your guys' hiring and the trends right now, do you think companies are getting a net positive ROI from integrating AI tools?
I think I think currently the challenge that AI companies are facing is there's so much open space, so much white space, and when you have that much white space, you unless you have someone who thinks very process driven and solves those types of things on a regular basis because that's the way their mind works, most people aren't going to come up with the use cases. So you need someone or a few people who are taking the charge to say, "Oh, here's a problem that I could solve for with AI, and it maybe right now it could get you 80% of the way." I was at
Yeah.
a virtual meeting yesterday that Zapier had, and I was talking about using AI in hiring. And Zapier encourages their employees to use Zapier to build agents to speed themselves up. And the use cases they've come up with are phenomenal. But they also have an ops person who's constantly thinking about how to optimize things. So, you have one person demonstrating. Then once people see potential use cases, they're like, I wonder if this could apply to my use case. Like, for instance, there's a platform that we're testing out. It's a paid trial. It's essentially a business development and recruitment campaign automation tool, but it includes an interview bot that will transcribe notes for you and automatically put them in your applicant tracking system. They don't know all the use cases yet for someone like myself. And then when I was talking to the salesperson, I was like, it'd be really great if it could do this too. And she was like, "Oh, that's a new one." And I was telling her about like pulling quotes from my conversations so that I could use them for short form content. She's like, "Oh, no one's ever used that before. You're really advanced." And I'm like, "No, I'm not. I just already, I know people." And I was like, "But these are use cases you should be implementing in your platform because it's only going to make it more powerful for your user." And I think that's the cool part of when companies using AI are integrating it vertically within their space. They can define the use cases that are important to people based on customer feedback
Mhm.
and studies and talking to people, especially early adopters and kind of tech evangelists in their companies.
Yeah, Dan, what do you see in the fintech, finance, sales roles that you're hiring for in those circles you run in? Do you think the companies that have been integrating AI have seen a positive ROI thus far?
I find that just some of these companies are um, not using AI in the right spots, right? And so there's stories just this week about how large tech companies or large companies in general are that have been using AI agents in doing interviews. They're actually adding in-person interviews back into their process. And so they're realizing, oh, wow, this is really a terrible candidate experience to just have them speaking to this black screen and just regurgitate what they are all about to a prompt that just shows up on the screen that they have to read. And so I think the use cases, people companies have to be careful, right? Because they want to if they want to attract talent, then they really have to think about that candidate experience because a terrible I should say, a less than optimal candidate experience leads to a terrible employee
Hmm.
experience many times. And so it just goes to show whether or not the company cares or not. And so the fact that they're adding in-person interviews back in really just totally sort of solidifies the idea that you want to have that human interaction so that that you have a motivated employee that's not just going to come in and just do their job, but they're going to be motivated and running in the door, excited for that
I
job.
think one of the interesting things that came out of the conversation that I saw yesterday was one, the use of AI in the application process has produced pools of candidates that all look like they're good for the job. And now it's becoming harder and harder to separate the wheat from the chaff. And so um, the use case of the AI interview is something that actually Zapier talked about them likely introducing, hopefully a more elegant solution than some of these others, but for the reason to
We
surface
hope.
people who are right for the job because they're all looking right on paper now and they're not necessarily all right.
Yeah.
So it's a really
Well,
interesting dynamic.
because we know this is inevitable with the people that don't have guidance and intent in how they use these tools. Let's say in the hiring process, your AI tool is trying to cull AI written resumes and cover letters from other AI written ones with AI. It's just
Likely an
like
AI written job description as well.
there's M dashes and
Right.
emojis in job descriptions
Yeah.
now. And that's it's
Yeah.
AI ping pong is what I call it. Like my AI thing hits it over the net to your AI thing, and I'm just scrolling Instagram while it's running in the background, and there's no real human interaction or decision making.
Yeah. Actually, a candidate asked me, "Oh, so should I revise my resume, for this job?" And I said, "Sure. You should take a look at this job description and revise it accordingly. But what I would caution against is using an AI tool to try to match it up perfectly. Like there has to be your voice
Which
in it."
ironically is what everyone else does. And to John's point, if you match it to the job description with AI, you're in the middle of the stack because that's what everybody else did. And if you're one of the few people who wrote that
Right.
manually and organically, it ironically may fit the job description less and make you stand out more.
Right. And especially since everybody's probably using the same free chat
Yes.
GPT AI engine, right? You're part of the
Yes.
problem, right? You're feeding the engine with the free stuff with more free
To make
stuff.
to make
Right?
future
And so
outputs more like the one you generated today for the guy who easy
it's
applies
just
tomorrow to the same job.
This
to the same job. Right. And so like you're part of the problem.
Yes.
it's likely
Okay.
Absolutely.
not going to be sustainable in terms of I mean it's why our stance is always if you're just applying you're never going to get the job because you know it's not just highly in demand companies that are experiencing this it's most companies unless you're really not of note or you're not using LinkedIn job board you're likely getting hundreds of applicants.
Oh yeah. So hundreds of applicants who a non-zero number are all using the same AI engine, right? So I actually had a conversation with um, a writer recently, and I got interviewed for this article. For shout out to Sydney Hayes from the Gazetteer. So thank you so much for the interview. And I got quoted in an article, and people want to have a strong, robust LinkedIn profile, but they're using AI to do it. And a part of the problem I think is that they need to tell their stories in an authentic way, right, and not just use AI. But yeah, it was. It's all about having that profile, which still so many people, John, you and I read profiles for a living, right? They still just think that LinkedIn is a placeholder
Yeah.
when it's such a great opportunity to continue to bolster your personal brand. I think Aaron, you're the one who said that it's a great place for social proof, right? So that that other people can comment or other can confirm what you did or what you
Yeah.
accomplished.
the way
right?
I think
So
about LinkedIn for me, and I'm not actively seeking roles, I just create a documentary that comes out as a photo or a video or a paragraph, one a day, of what I was doing. And it's not, here's what you can learn from me. I'll literally just say, screenshot, here's the thing I did today, and here's why I used it that way, post. And the algorithms will find your people. They will find the hiring manager. They will find the C-suite person who goes, wow, I wish someone in my organization could teach us how to do that. And you don't have to be a live streamer on TikTok all day, although I've done that. Just create a documentary that you curate what actually goes out. And if it's not once a day, do it once a week to
Mhm.
start and just share. And I think on this topic of, let's call it AI whiplash, right? Some of the Googles going back to in-person interviews, the Duolingo clarifying what AI first means. It doesn't mean no more humans work here and it's all robots. One of the problems is organizations haven't found intentional ways to integrate. They're just like, oh, there's a tool that does this, plug it in. AI interviews have got to be a great example of a terrible application of a potentially great technology. And my suggestion, I was talking to someone who works at a SaaS company, and they said the best thing that we do is a quarterly build-a-thon hackathon. And the engineers will be there because there's lots of engineers. It's a tech company. But the engineers are only like assisting and tutoring. And all the non-technical people, so the marketing team is there, the sales team, customer success. They're like, hey, what would make our tool better? How can we make it? And they just do an all hands on meeting once a quarter. And the engineers are kind of guiding, like, yeah, here's how we could do it or what that would look like. And they said some of their best ideas come from their own quarterly build-a-thons where they just all put their heads together. John, what are you doing to make this go faster? Dan, what tool do you like for this? How can you share that? And you have people in your organization, I call them AI scouts. John is an AI scout. Like, hey, I went out and looked at 18 different things, but I'll only bring back the 2 that are worth our time. Put those in front of your team and just have a lunch, have a Zoom, take a day and just do that once a quarter.
and some of the best ideas will actually come from customer success people, right? Or the customer service people that are interacting with clients that are saying, dang it, I wish it could do this. You know, log that into your tracking system, your Jira, whatever you're using to track customer feedback, and bring that to those meetings. I think it's a genius idea,
Yeah.
Aaron.
Well, and I've seen people do it. I just did a version of that today with my own organization. And here's one I'll share that people didn't believe me. Let's go on our own social profile. So say we're a tech company and we post on X or Instagram regularly. Go curate all of the comments on your posts to find product suggestions, complaints, what people are excited about, and get that in front of someone like, say, an engineer who is not looking at the company LinkedIn profile and say, hey, based on the comments, 83 people mentioned John's feature where could I have it create short form posts? And the engineer's like, oh, I don't look at Instagram or LinkedIn. I didn't know the people wanted it. You can just build a tool to say, all the transcripts from customer support curate the most common complaints about our product and suggest what the roadmap should include.
Like the ability to do sentiment analysis, or like even just the ability to pull good data from transcripts is so high now. I can query Perplexity and be like, what are the top 3 things candidates are complaining about in my conversations, because it has every transcript of mine from when I started using that tool. And, or I could in the past 3 weeks, it knows which transcripts occurred when. So it's very useful, and that's just a light implementation. Imagine you have a tool built for people doing this that has that thought process layered in. The question becomes, what do we think these tools are going to be centralized, or do we think, we see so many different things. And right now, for instance, I told you about one use case, that a tool that I'm actively using as a recruiter could have, but instead I have to go to another platform in order to do it. What's you know, and then the drawback is I can choose the chatbot, not chatbot, the transcript tool that automatically goes to my Google Drive that I have connected, that my Perplexity is already connected to and already understands my voice, or I can use the one that automatically uploads into my applicant tracking system. And so it's like, okay, well, do I copy the transcript from the one that goes to my ATS and paste it into Google Drive manually? Currently, it doesn't have an integration point with Google Drive, so I can't use a Zap or some other tool for it. It doesn't have that functionality. I could suggest that functionality so that I'm down to one tool, but that will likely take time.
Here's what I see on that. The least amount of friction wins with the average employee. Because we came up in the AI era of I have a
Mhm.
tab of Perplexity and a tab of this thing, and I copy and I paste and then I put it here. What I see is the omniscient, omnipotent AI tool, which I'm a little biased here, but I think it's the AI browsers. I don't even think it's a chat bot or a model. I think the interface of the browser is where most of us live and do knowledge work. The context is open, it's just in that tab or this tab. That's what I see as winning because then you don't need to. So let's take John's use case. You have a specific tool that does transcripts and goes to your ATS, but I bet it's open in a tab and has all the text on the page. An agentic browsing tool like Comet, like Dia, there's a bunch of them. You can just say, take that and put it here, prompt, and it's done. So I think that trumps zaps and API calls and which company buys the best meeting note taker, because a browser actually dissolves all of the friction in getting those things to talk, because everyone has a web app. Like every single one of these has a web app. So just have the tabs open and there's your context. What do you
Now,
think, Dan?
go ahead, Dan.
Well, I think that the ability to use a browser. I mean, I've started using Comet recently, and just asking it to do just a couple simple things, it was just so easy to do. And now that more of the phones are going to be AI enhanced or infused, right? It's not just Siri anymore. They're actually going to have real task making. I think that completely democratizes access to greater efficiencies. When you have, and it doesn't even have to be AI infused. If you can finally get, you know, a browser that's that's driven by AI, I think that's where the inflection point is, right? So um, I think people will have the opportunity, whether or not they take advantage of it, they'll have the opportunity to make themselves a lot more efficient, a lot more productive, a lot more value added to their organizations. And hopefully they'll be able to progress in their careers or whatever they do if they're going to start up a company.
Yeah. So let's tie it back to the job hugging, since that was the leading point as we close this episode of the F Yourself podcast with Future Proof You. What should people be doing if they're worried that they might be on the chopping block, or they're like, I don't love this job, but I'm afraid to leave because I'll get stuck out there in the ether and not get a role? What's your advice to the job huggers, John?
Yeah, I think now's the time to be the AI expert. I know we say this every time, but like now is the best time because it's still new, it's still novel. There isn't someone out there in your company necessarily already thinking about it, and if they are, they might not have as sophisticated of an understanding as you. So it's time to learn those types of things, I think, personally. Yeah, the 4 things you need to do, right? Make money, save money, reduce risk, and make your boss look good.
And then you won't have to. Then you won't have to hug your job.
No, it'll hug you. Bye, everyone.
Yeah, we'll see you on LinkedIn when you're posting and start networking at scale. That's where we look forward to seeing you in our audience.
Bye bye.